Welcome to AI Inside. It's a show where we go and talk about with the practitioners what exactly is real versus what's the hype. And we talk about what if to what next. Today I have with me Ankush Khona, who is a dear friend, but also a very proficient practitioner of analytics and data and AI for many, many years. He's done a lot of work as a consultant. He's focused a lot in mergers and acquisitions. And most recently, he was the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at a health tech company called CityBlock. Ankush, welcome.
Thank you, Amaresh. It's an opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity to having this discussion.
Wonderful, Ankush. You and I have chatted for many years in various roles. And what I wanted to do today was kind of pick up three things. I mean, obviously now data and AI is kind of at a different point in the hype cycle right now, especially Gen AI. I wanted to kind of get your perspective, and I've always worked with clients kind of from an outside-in view of it. And I think you're in a very unique position where you have not only focused with the clients from outside in, you have advised them, but you have also ran these functions now. And it'll be great to get your view of what's the difference between outside in and inside out, and what's the kind of the reality that you have to deal with on a few topics. So let's start with the first one, which is kind of developing in kind of a data AI strategy, right? I mean, normally, like a lot of our clients would call kind of an advisor to go and say, hey, how do you, I mean, we are embarking on a journey, or we are trying to do a broader transformation, start laying out an AI strategy. And normally it is like, okay, what are the value drivers, where you want to do it? How does it connect to the corporate strategy? Then you start thinking about the various components around operating model, around talent, around technology stacks. And then you kind of put together a plan and you execute on that. I mean, that's kind of how most of these things get done. But Ankush, I know, I mean, you have done that, I know, but as from an inside out, when you were the Chief Data Analytics Officer, what was the process like for you when you started?
Yeah, Amresh, I think it's a great question. When I started on, being on the consulting side, often we would start with working with the senior client leadership executives to really understand, what their overarching business strategy is, what are some of the key priorities for them, where the focus points are, and then, start to really look at, what kind of business they are. And if you're a life sciences organization, if you're a US healthcare organization, what are some of the challenges that you're trying to solve near term and longer term? And then depending upon, who you are, where you are placed, how you're placed, the strategies started to get defined. For me at CityBlock, obviously, as a healthcare CDO, it's a local US healthcare organization. So we did not really have to worry about anything outside of US.
Yes.
And so most of our discussions started with really taking a step back and working with the leadership, the senior leadership, the CEO of the organization, the CEO of the organization, the CFO of the organization, to really starting to understand what their next 6 to 12 months priorities are, and how does the overarching strategy enables those priorities, right? So we had to look at laying out a 3-year roadmap, but also being because it's an early growth startup, we also had to ensure that we are enabling capabilities every quarter, right? So we did not have the luxury to holistically take a step back and fully implement it. So we applied a dual-based mechanism where, as we started to define the strategy from a growth standpoint, we also had to focus on what the near-term operational challenges were and how do you continue to solve those. So it was a strategy that had to fit in both, and that's how we took it.
So kind of a dual mode in some ways, kind of, okay, solve the problems for me today while you're figuring out kind of building the foundation for tomorrow in some place.
Yes. And that's exactly how we went about it. And also, understanding that again, we are not a Fortune 500 where we had ample amount of resources and everything. So we had limited resources, limited, either from a people standpoint or dollar standpoint. So we had to make sure that, the strategy is taking into account that reality. And, at the same time, you're not like over you're not trying to overly sell the strategy, but at the same time you have to make sure that you're making pragmatic progress in terms of achieving the milestones at a quick fashion.
And one thing which is normally a struggle is there's a general skepticism, right? Because fundamentally, when you're doing AI or data-driven decision making, you're saying, okay, you're essentially telling some functional experts, okay, this is a better way of doing things, or you should be thinking about that. How have you encountered, have you encountered, and how have you managed that? The general skepticism around, okay, why do I need analytics software telling me how should I run my portion of the business?
For us, things were a little bit different, right? I think it also starts with the maturity of the organization, frankly, and the maturity of the leaders who are into that position. I don't know, I would say I was a little bit lucky in that way, because my leaders out there at the forefront itself were very data-driven leadership. So they really understood the nuances of having the data strategy built out in the right way, and why is it so important for the organization. And because their bet was in terms of, in a way, if you take a step back, the problem that the organization was trying to solve was so unique, which has not been attempted before in the industry. They had to use data to their advantage to solving some of those very complex problems of underprivileged, underserved communities, right? And you're talking about homelessness people. How do you track them? Where do you find them? They just rush to hospital or whatever it is. So I think it was very, very intentional for them to bet on data and its capabilities, and they had to be a data-driven organization to run some of these. So in that way, I did not have to oversell the concept of data, but if you take the other way, and I'm just a little bit putting my consulting hat on, if you had stepped into an organization which wasn't very fancy about data or wasn't very wary about data, then obviously you again have to start from the top, right? Which is making sure that the leadership at the highest level really understands and is aligned. And actually one of my, very, very strong clients that I worked with, and I went through with them the journey of 3 years, building some of the largest data strategy for them and implementing it and executing for them from the ground level up. It was really taking a step back, working with the executive leadership for so long and ensuring that, they fully understand what is being recommended, bringing them up to speed. So there was a lot of learning and patience involved as part of the process. And then obviously, we went through the entire implementation cycle with them. But, at every point you had to continue to communicate and educate and make sure that, the value is clearly understood, and it's being delivered at the same time, right? So,
so three things I think, which is not very, very important points you said across your 2 examples. One is it's always top down. Second, the value of the kind of a dual mode. I think it's whether it's a high growth company or not, how do you actually create a dual mode strategy where you are showing the deliverables on a much more frequent basis. And I think the third point, which is like most overlooked at times, it's a communication aspect of it. How do you actually continuously communicate so that you align everyone on the vision? So that's exactly, I think, the very, very, very good insights, Ankush. So thank you for coming and sharing, and we'll talk more.
Yeah, thank you.
AuxoAI. What if? What's next?